Yo, what's up? Here's a review for Miss Marvel Episode 5. So, the Disney Plus Marvel Studio show Miss Marvel Episode 5 is called Time and Again. Now, with this episode, we're following Kamala Khan's great grandparents in the time of partition in the 1940s, I think it is, and where they're having to deal with everything that's going on, where the British are starting to leave, and they've also separating these two countries into one India, one Pakistan, and they're moving all the Muslims into Pakistan. Now, before that happens, you get Kamala's great grandparents who come together and kind of find love in this little night where they share food and stuff like that. And then you also get them, you explore them having a baby and then getting kicked out of India into Pakistan and having to go through partition. So I really enjoyed that part of this episode, especially kind of the history that we got of what's going on here and how they're dealing with this whole thing of being, not only dealing with British occupancy and also dealing with the fact that the Muslims are being kicked out into another country. But also like the fact that, Kamala's great grandmother and her powers are being dealt with here and too, and she's having to hide them. She having to hide who she is from Hassan and her great grandfather. That was really, really interesting. I wish that we got a little bit more in depth into their relationship and got a little bit more time spent on how they're connecting as a partners and stuff like that. You got a little bit once her grandmother was born, but I wish we explored that a little bit more in this episode. But it starts to break down when Kamala's auntie Najia, or I think that's how you say her name, she comes out and she basically tells Kamala's great grandmother that, either you help us get back there or something's going to happen. And she does it, and she ends up getting killed for that. And that's when Kamala Khan comes into play, and she sees her great grandmother is dying and she needs to help her grandmother get to her great grandfather. So I really enjoyed that scene. There was a lot of emotional moments in there where you're getting Kamala Khan, really interacting for the first time with her great grandmother and seeing that, she's dying in my hand. And now I have to be the one to kind of, lead my grandmother to my great grandfather, and the emotional moments of, her grandmother crying and stuff like that, and her kind of using the powers to help her out, but then also her grandmother kind of using the powers as well to get to her great grandfather. So that was really, really interesting. I really like how they did that. The other aspect of this episode was Kamala Khan being pushed back into the normal time and then having to deal with that broken a rift in between the two worlds of ours and the worlds that the Jinn come from. So I was interested in how they did that, to where it was killing them when they tried to go back into it, and Kamala's auntie sacrificing herself to give her powers to her son, Cameron, I think his name is. But it was really interesting to see that. In one part, I didn't like it because we don't get a lot of what her auntie is. You get a couple fight scenes, we get a couple speeches, but we didn't get a lot more than that from her. I would have loved to have seen them expand her character a little bit more and, really let us get into her villainy. But this season didn't really spend too much time with that. And then for Cameron to get the powers, now we're going to have to deal with him and damage control, and also him and Bruno, which they kind of break bread, and he's telling Bruno, help me out, I'm trying to hide out and stuff like that. And you get to see him that he now has a certain kind of copy of Kamala's powers. So that was really, really interesting. I'm interested to see how they go from here. So yeah, we have one more episode left. This is the penultimate episode. We got episode 6 coming up. I'm really interested to see, how do we finish out this story? How do we have our big battle scenes? How do we kind of take Kamala and her cousin and kind of, pit them one against one another and deal with this whole thing? So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they finish out this stuff. But for this episode, I'm probably out of 3. Not the greatest of episodes. It was a little bit slow at parts, but I thought it had a lot of emotional moments that they used pretty well. So yeah, that's my review for Miss Marvel episode 5. I'm out of here. Peace.